I noticed the necklace before I noticed anything else about that morning. It was sitting in a velvet box on the gift table at my daughter's wedding reception, tag marked from Grandma Rose. And the moment I saw it through the crowd, I stopped moving completely, because that necklace had been missing from my mother's jewelry box for 10 years, and my mother had been dead for 9. My name is Carol Delaney, 53. My mother passed when my daughter Lily was 16, and in the weeks after the funeral, several pieces of her jewelry disappeared. A pearl bracelet, a diamond tennis bracelet she'd worn every day for 30 years, and this necklace, a gold chain with a sapphire pendant my father had given her on their 20th anniversary. A piece so specific and so personal that I'd described it to a jeweler once, and he said he'd never seen anything like it. I'd assumed it was lost in the chaos of settling the estate. I'd grieved it quietly and moved on. Grandma Rose is my mother-in-law. She has been in our lives for 26 years, and in my mother's house exactly once at the funeral reception, while I was managing food and flowers and relatives and grief simultaneously, and wasn't watching who went where. I picked up the velvet box, opened it, turned it over in my hands. The clasp on the back had a small dent, a specific dent from the time my mother caught it in a car door, and bent the mechanism slightly. It had never been repaired because she didn't want anyone touching it. The dent was still there. I set the box down, went to the bathroom, and stood at the sink for 4 minutes. My daughter was dancing 20 feet away in the dress we'd spent 6 months finding. I was not going to do anything that turned her wedding into something else. I took a photo of the necklace, texted it to my sister with 3 words, "Look at this," and went back to the reception and smiled for 5 more hours. My sister called at 11 that night. She'd been looking for that necklace for a decade. She remembered it the same way I did: the chain, the sapphire, the bent clasp, the story of our parents' anniversary. She also remembered something I'd forgotten. At the funeral reception, she'd seen Rose go upstairs alone. She'd assumed she was looking for the bathroom. She hadn't thought about it again until now. I didn't confront Rose that week or the next. My daughter was on her honeymoon. I was not going to detonate a family bomb while Lily was somewhere in Italy believing the world was good. I spent 3 weeks building instead. I called the jeweler my mother had used for 30 years, a man named Arthur Chen, who'd known her since before I was born, and kept records of every piece he'd ever cleaned, repaired, or appraised. My mother had brought the necklace to him in 1987 for a clasp adjustment. He still had the record. He also, when I described the dent in the current clasp, told me he'd documented that specific damage in a 2003 appraisal note, including a photograph, because my mother had asked him to assess repair costs, and then decided against it. Arthur gave me a written appraisal record with a photograph of the necklace taken in 2003, 17 years before my daughter's wedding, showing the exact clasp, the exact dent, and a description matching the piece sitting in a velvet box in my living room. I asked Thomas first, sat him down on a Sunday morning, showed him the appraisal record and the photo I'd taken at the reception, and asked him honestly whether he knew anything about how his mother had come to have it. Thomas went pale. Not guilty pale. Shocked pale. He'd never seen the necklace before. He had no idea. I believed him immediately, which meant Rose had done this not just to my mother but around her own son. Acquired something she had no right to, hidden it for a decade, then found a use for it that made her look generous. She'd given my daughter her grandmother's stolen necklace as a wedding gift. Wrapped it, tagged it, smiled while Lily opened it. The confrontation happened on a Wednesday afternoon at Rose's house. Thomas present because he'd asked to be, and because I wanted a witness. I brought the appraisal record, Arthur's written statement, and the 2003 photograph. Rose's first move was confusion. The necklace had been in her family for years, a piece she'd picked up at an estate sale. She wasn't sure exactly when. "Which estate sale?" I said. A pause. "I don't remember exactly. Arthur Chen photographed this specific clasp damage in 2003, I said. My mother brought it to him for a repair estimate. He has the record. The dent is documented. This necklace belonged to my mother, and it went missing from her house the week of her funeral." Rose looked at Thomas. Thomas looked at the table. "I'm sure there's an explanation," she said. "I'm sure there is too. I'd like to hear it." She tried 3 more versions of the estate sale story, each slightly different, each collapsing under a dated photograph and a jeweler's signed statement. By the 4th version, her voice had lost its confidence, and Thomas, who had been silent the entire time, said quietly, "Mom, stop." She stopped. The silence lasted long enough to mean something. Rose never admitted it directly. She cried instead, the specific crying of someone who has been caught and is now managing the audience rather than the truth. She said she hadn't thought about where it came from in years. She said she'd wanted to give Lily something meaningful. She started a sentence with "I didn't realize" and didn't finish it, because finishing it would have required saying something true. I took the necklace back. Not dramatically, I picked up the velvet box, put it in my bag, and told Rose that Lily would be told her great-grandmother's necklace had been found and returned to the family, which was true, and that she didn't need to know the rest, which was a decision I made for my daughter's sake, and not for Rose's. Thomas handled the rest privately with his mother. I haven't asked what was said because some conversations between a son and his mother are not mine to be part of. What I know, Arthur Chen cleaned the necklace and repaired the clasp, the repair my mother had decided against in 2003. It sits in my jewelry box now, next to my mother's pearl bracelet, which Rose returned without explanation 3 weeks later, left in a bag on our front porch with no note. She's never mentioned either piece again. Lily wore the necklace at her first anniversary dinner. She thought it was a new gift from me, a family piece I'd been saving. I told her it belonged to her great-grandmother and that it had taken a long time to find its way home. Both of those things are true. I left it at that.